Hey, what's happening? Chris Martinez here. I am the host of Operation Agency Freedom, and I am so excited about today's episode because I've got a very, very special guest on the show today, somebody that I had to do a lot of convincing to come on the show. My wife, Oyuki Gallegos, is going to be on the call today, and she's going to be talking about agency finances. So, everything related to best practices, mistakes that you might be making or that she sees in agencies all the time. She's going to be talking about what she does every day as well, and just kind of give you some overall general tips that you can use to improve your agency finances. And while I know that finances usually isn't the most exciting topic for agency owners, it is unbelievably important. And I can tell you that when I brought her into the business, and she was able to use her years and years of expertise to improve our finances. Guess what? Obviously the business started to improve. I started to make more money. We were more profitable. We could invest in things that we've been putting off because we didn't have the money. And the best part is that the business got a lot more fun. And so when you have somebody in that role, or even when you yourself, if you used to have to do the role, when you understand the best practices for running your agency finances, that creates a lot more time for you to be able to focus on the things that you love to do. So I highly encourage you to continue to listen to this episode and take lots of notes. She gives tons of great information. And if you're like me, who doesn't have a background in finances, you're definitely going to want to learn from her, who has, been basically, she went to high school and she got a degree in bookkeeping and accounting. And then it just, she's been doing this for over, gosh, almost 20 years now. So pay attention to this episode. I'll see you on the other side. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show, Operation Agency Freedom. We have a very special guest today, Oyuki Gallegos, who is in charge of our finances. She also happens to be my wife, my beautiful esposa. We happen to be recording on Valentine's Day today. So she is my forever Valentine as well. We have a unique tradition where we actually celebrate Valentine's Day on February 15th. So we're going out tomorrow. Anyways, welcome to the show, babe.
Hi, babe. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you jumping on. I know you don't necessarily love being on podcasts, but I think you have so much knowledge to share that I needed to get you on. So thanks for joining us. I know I didn't prep you for this, but really quickly, like if you can just share your background and like your education, just so that people understand what you went to school for, that'd be great.
Okay. So I went to school for business management, and then I got my bachelor's in that. And then I did a program in organizational development, which is a lot about organizational culture and like all the things that need to happen for businesses to grow.
Awesome. We ended up been together for 7 years, 6 years.
6
Together for
years.
6 years. Prior to this, she worked for a company that did like payroll and like management for a lot of companies in Mexico. She's from Mexicali, Mexico, which is like 2
Yes.
hours east of TJ. And then you did go to a technical high school and you studied accounting.
Accounting.
Yeah.
Yes. So I did. So in Mexico, there are just high schools that have programs so that we go to to work in companies to become part of the labor market as soon as we graduate high school. And technically that's what the program is for, but most people that go through these high schools also go to college, which is what I did. In this program, or in this high school, it's called specialty. It was accounting. It's kind of like a bookkeeper, but a little bit more advanced. That's what you get when you graduate plus your high school diploma. I also did that. And that's why I went into business management, because I really liked it and I wanted to learn more about businesses. So I felt like I was one step ahead when I started college.
Yeah. And why I bring this up is because most agency owners don't really have much education, myself included, in business. Like I studied sociology. A lot of you studied design, or some people went to school for computer science, right? And then, like, I think this is one of the big assets that we have at Dude, and that our clients also, benefit from this knowledge as well, is that we have somebody who has years and years of formal education, as well as, years running our own company too, which is great. So
Yeah.
kind of like our secret weapon. But what's funny is that Oyuki also loves to work with her hands.
Oh yeah.
So, she jokes about going back, if you could do it over, you probably, what was it, the mechanic? You would have got the mechanic high school track.
Probably, I think so. So there was this other program in my same high school that's where my friends were. It was maintenance, and it was basically learning to weld and do like maintenance, like around buildings and houses and stuff like that. For basically like becoming a handyman, which I almost am.
You are the
So
handyman in our house. Come on, let's be honest. I can't fix shit.
right.
Um, yeah. If you ever come to our house and you want to see Oyuki's wood shop, we will happily show it to you, and
Oh
all the
yeah,
cool stuff that she
and
builds
all my toys, which are all the tools that I have.
that I would kill myself with. Chop my
Yeah,
arm off in a minute.
he's not allowed in
Um,
there.
it's true. You have your safe space. So anyways, so the first thing that I want to talk about is this concept, or this thing that we teach called profitability per client. And I,
Yes.
I think it's so relevant because we all have these nightmare clients that end up eating way more of our time and way more of our resources. But a lot of the times, before you get this in place, you don't have the data behind it. And so it's difficult to make the decisions to raise the prices or maybe even drop them sometimes, because we don't have the data. So I wanted you to give us some best practices or tips, or even just break down how you track profitability per client. Because if there's anything that agencies should start doing really, really soon, other than just keeping track of their finances, it's tracking profitability per client. So what tips do you
Yes.
have on that?
So for profitability per client, we need to everything when it comes to profitability, the one thing that you're gonna hear over and over is cost of goods sold. So once you have the cost of goods sold, which means everything that you spend so that you can fulfill the service or the product that you're selling, then you're going to compare it to multiple things. So then you can see how profitable your packages are, how profitable your clients are, how profitable a period of time was, how profitable a team in your company is. So there's going to be multiple ways that you can look into profitability, but it's all coming from the cost of goods sold. So basically, when we're looking at a profitability per client, you want to make sure that what your client is paying you is that's the first thing, and it happens often. I've seen it in a lot of agencies. Like you have one client that is paying you less than what it's costing you, so you're losing money in that one client, and this is a nightmare client. The one's always requesting more stuff, it's
Mm-hmm.
always requesting revisions, it's always so these are the kind of things that are going to make your cost higher, and there are going to be other clients that are going to offset that. So profitability per client is basically comparing what is my cost of goods sold and the product that I am selling to the client and how much they are paying and what is the difference. So depending on your packages, depending on the like if you're offering a unlimited monthly service, which is like a monthly recurring revenue package that you have, then it's especially important that you have this information. You are able to see how much you're spending on each client every month over as long as you can. I would say at least 6 months. And then you're aware if they have any high seasons where they are going to like really go over budget for you, but they're going to offset it later on because most of the month of the year they don't usually spend that much or spend nearly close to what they spend on their high season. And these are clients that are going to be paying you 12 months when they are actually only using you 3, but they keep you for the convenience. So it makes sense to keep them. Where if the client is using 80%, 80% of the revenue you're getting is going to the cost of goods sold, and that is consistent, that's probably not a good idea to keep that client. Maybe you need to upsell them, maybe you need to offer them or cap the service that you're giving them, or figure out what's the best way for you to have a healthy margin on the client.
So what it should be around 30 to 35% of the revenue goes towards cost of goods. So if you have a client and they're paying you $1,000 a month, you should be spending $300 to $350 a month to fulfill everything for that customer. In my opinion, if it's above that consistently, then that's a client that we have to upsell. Now, sometimes there's exceptions, right? Maybe it's a legacy client, or maybe it's your best testimonial that you have. And so you'll basically, you'll settle on 40 or 45% cost of goods because this client is helping you out in other ways. But I think what makes it really easy is when your employees are complaining about this client, and then you look at the numbers and you're like, oh my God, like we're spending so much money. And this happens all the time, where you're spending more money than the revenue that's coming in. Like you're charging the client $1,000 and you're spending $1,100 a month to get their stuff done. I mean, you don't have to be an MBA to recognize that that's a recipe for bankruptcy. Yeah.
I would like to add, it's that margin that you're mentioning, like 30, 35, it's very healthy. It also depends a lot on the ticket price. So if it's a higher ticket, that margin can be a little bit higher. And I mean, it's better to have higher margin on a higher ticket than a good margin on many, many small tickets, because that's more work. You're going to need more support, more support people aside from like the cost of goods sold. So it really depends on where you're sitting, like what kind of product you're selling, what kind of package you're selling. And in the end, you have to look at this as a budget, as a margin thing, but also as a cash thing, because sometimes your higher ticket is going to have a little bit of a higher margin, but it's going to be much better. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that this 30, 35% is cost of goods sold exclusively. You still have a lot to pay with the rest of the money. There are still many expenses that we need to account for. So if you're looking at a client, because I feel like I've seen this happening where you're seeing like, oh, this cost of goods sold is 80%. I'm still making 20% out of that. You're not. That 20% is going to pay salaries for your support management team. It's going to pay utilities. It's going to pay insurance. It's going to pay a bunch of other expenses that are fixed operation expenses that are not going to show on the cost of goods sold.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because before I learned about cost of goods sold and the pro forma and just general, I would say basic finances for running a marketing agency or a business, I would sell a client and I'd be like, we signed up this client for $1,000. That's $1,000 that goes to my pocket. No, it does not, because the first thing that goes like right off the top is that cost of goods sold, right? Right. We have to pay somebody to do the fulfillment. And then after that, we have rent expense. We have the lights and toilet paper. And then we have advertising expenses. And we have attorneys. We have like our bookkeeping fees and all these other things. And so little by little, all this stuff is getting chipped away. And then there will not be enough money left over for Chris.
Right.
So cost of goods sold is literally the most important thing. It's the first line of defense. If your cost of goods sold is too high, it's really, really difficult to make money, right?
Yes,
So
it is.
awesome. So I love that profitability per client. So, just really quick question about that to summarize. So profitability per client, you look at the time tracking, right? And you basically multiply it by each person's hourly rate. And then whatever that number is, you add that up and you subtract that from
Well,
what
it
they're
would be
paying.
time tracking. That's the main one. I also like including whatever we're spending on apps and platforms to fulfill the service.
Okay.
Because sometimes, like, there are platforms that are like so expensive, and I divide them by number of clients that we're servicing with the platform, or by amount of hours that we are servicing, that we're using the platform for the client. Each is easier for me to have a set fee for like, I bundle all of my apps and platforms are like for design. And then I divide that by the number of clients that are getting design work from us. So, and that's going to be an extra, like whatever we spent on salaries or on the time tracking, whatever that amount was, plus the apps and platforms fees, and that's going to be the cost of goods sold.
Okay,
And
cool.
then to get the profitability of the client, we're going to use the revenue minus the cost of goods sold.
Okay,
And that's going to be the percentage.
good. So hopefully you're listening to this and you understand that formula. It's not that challenging. What does make it challenging though is if you're not time tracking, then we can't really calculate that. But if you have time tracking in place, it's pretty easy to
And I
calculate
will
those
say,
numbers.
I will say one thing here. A lot of people who are not time tracking think that they have a really good understanding or a really good idea of how much time things are taking. And once you start time tracking, you will see that your margins are off
Yeah.
because we underestimate how much, like this happens all the time, even not on design, not on development. I thought a task today was going to take me an hour. I've been there, I've been working on that for 2 hours and I'm still like halfway done. So that
Yeah.
happens all the time.
Yep. So your team members are basically experiencing that too, where, oh, that project took me an hour. Well, if we were to look at the time tracking data, it actually took 4 hours.
Yes.
And then that's why we're also having capacity issues.
Yes.
Um, and sometimes it's because it takes them 4 hours because maybe there's some efficiency problems or there's some training things that we can give them and then they'll be able to get it done in an hour. But sometimes there's nothing we can do about it and it just takes that long. And in
Yes.
those instances, we usually have to do a combination of two things. We do have to raise prices because our cost for the labor is up. And then also we have to look at those clients and see, especially the ones that are underpaying. We have to look at those ones. And, so we have to make some difficult decisions sometimes. But it's better to know and then make
It's
decisions than just be in the dark.
way better to make any decision based on numbers, any decision based on numbers with like, it can be the staff, like they are not hitting their, because one thing is to say, this thing is taking 4 hours when it should take two. But it's always, this designer is always doing it 4 hours. That's something maybe we think that there's nothing that we can do. But if there are other designers that are taking 2 hours or are taking 1 hour to do it, it's a training thing, or maybe their computer is too slow, or maybe. But if it's just like if we gave everything to this person and still taking 4 hours, that's not a good fit. So even letting someone go can be based on numbers and should be based on numbers. And I think it's the same with every single decision. It's much better, much. It's easier for business owner to make decisions when once you're able to see how impact everything else.
Yep. Good. All right. So the next thing that I wanted you to provide some insight is just general financial reporting and like things that agencies should be doing on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis.
Okay.
If there's like any reports that you see, and like, you've talked to many agency clients before, if there's things that you see that they're not doing that they should start doing.
So as I said, once you have cost of goods sold, you can see the same thing that you're doing with like the clients, which is profitability per client is super important, but also do it for per package, because sometimes your offer is way too good. And that's because you are not covering your costs, because your
Mhm.
product has too many services in it. Your package has too many hours, and you like that. I would say maybe once every 6 months, you should be doing a review of your packages and make sure that they are within, because also inflation and salaries are going up and everything's going up. So like make sure that you still have a good margin on your packages. Aside from that, finances, I like, well, one report that I like looking at is capacity, making sure that the staff that we have are occupied at least 80% of the time. And it's never going to be 100. We don't want it to be 100. It's not sustainable for a person to be working 100% of the time that they are logged in, because they sometimes need to do some research. Sometimes they need to like go for a walk or go use the bathroom or have their break. And then there's people like sometimes they take PTO, or someone in the team is going to take PTO, someone on the team is going to take a sick day. So that is that 80%. So that 20% should be the time that we are having as a cushion.
Like downtime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but make sure that everybody in your team is close to 80. And this help us see that we're not paying salaries that we shouldn't, like that we don't need, or that are not offering um, any value to the product or to our clients. That accountability is happening in
Mhm.
your workplace, because then also, and we just had this conversation, like we have people that will not have be up at that 80% and will still say it like, I don't have time to do that, or I just didn't make it to
You're right.
whatever deadline. So as finances, and this can be also HR, and can be operations, and everybody is going to be affected by this report. Everybody should be making decisions based on this report, but as finances, 100% look at this number. And then the performa, for sure. Performa is like the biggest one, so that you can keep yourself within budgets, and so that you can plan for growth and plan for even if you're going to have downtimes, because that's probably your business is also seasonal, and then you can allocate some money for when things are slowing down so that you can revamp them.
Great. As you're talking about these numbers and reports and stuff like that, agency owners, we're not good with finances. I was literally just talking to a guy the other day, and he's like, "Yeah, my owner doesn't know anything about numbers. It's really, really struggles with the numbers." So these are concepts that it's really hard for certain people, especially the owners who are like typically very creative types. And they might be thinking to themselves, I need to hire somebody like Oyuki. What is it that you do? Just so that if somebody decides that they do want to hire somebody to help them with their finances, or, an employee, what are some of the things that you do in your day to day that if they hire somebody like you, that those people would be responsible for that?
So I think the best way to like summarize it is keeping track of the money. And that involves, I didn't mention cash flow, also is one report that finances should be looking at every day. Um, but it's keeping track of the money. Where is it coming from? Where is it going? How safe we are? Like we have like an emergency or expense that we need to cover. Are we good to do that? And everything that involves that. So if you have an external bookkeeper, keeping a relationship with them, if keeping a relationship with your banks, but making sure that this all of these reports are on track, up to date, forecasting. And I think a big part, if you're going to hire a person for the finances, a big part of it should be involving them in decision making and cold database decision making, because that I've seen with agency owners, shiny things. Oh my God, this course is going to change and it's going to shift our industry, and it's going to reshape the way that we do things, and this new product and this new platform and this new person. So a lot of this is great, but it is, especially for people that are very like creative, very easy to get sidetracked. So a finance person doing their job should have all of these numbers in place to be like, okay, and make the right questions when you're making decisions, which is like, I feel like it's a big part of what I do. How is this going to turn into revenue for us? What is the benefit that we're going to get from this? And how soon can we see the ROI? Sorry, I always think about this word in Spanish. Um, how soon can we see the return of investment on this amount that I'm going to let go of my cash flow?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I mean, it is very true that agency owners have like crazy shiny object syndrome. And what I was thinking about is like, okay, like It's kind of hard, if you're not the owner, to tell the owner, like, no, don't spend money on that. It's a stupid thing. But that's what you got to do. You're in charge of keeping track of the money. So you're supposed to be the conservative one. You're supposed to be the one that's asking questions. If you know that there's going to be a shiny object every month that your owner is going to want to spend money on, I won't even use the word invest because most of the time it's just money being burned. Give them a budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Create a shiny object budget, or you can call it a research and
100%.
development budget if you want to. And just say, hey, like you get $2,000 a month that you can spend on whatever the hell you want. Like somebody has this course, go ahead. You want to go to this conference, go ahead. Like whatever. Just stay within the budget. That's the easiest thing you
Absolutely.
can do. Then you kind of
Absolutely. And I would even say like you have $1,000 and allocate 2,000 just in case, because I've seen this.
It's very true. Very, very true. All right. Last question for you, Yuki, and then I'll let you get back to your actual work. Best practices that you have for the agency owners, because I know you've spoken to many, many of them. What are some of like finance best practices or like tips that you have for them? And if you have
I
to
think it's
repeat
just
anything that you've said, then that's totally okay, because I know we've given them a lot of really, really good info.
I think it's just a big one for me is to, even if it's uncomfortable, keep track of the numbers. Keep like make that the like the practice, like be on top of your numbers and be on top of not even if you are not doing anything that we discussed, if you're not doing the cost of goods sold, if you're not doing the anything at all, I would say just look at your bank every day. Look at your bank account and look at at your cash flow. How much money it's coming in, how much money is going out. Just that practice of looking at it every day will make you have more questions that are going to push you into looking for the answers with everything else that I just talked about. But just being very, I feel like it's often better to just look away, like if we don't like what we're seeing, and it just doesn't work like that. It's not gonna fix itself.
Good. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all these wonderful insights. You have so many years of experience, not just in business, and through your education, but also running an actual agency, like doing what we do, and then countless hours talking to clients. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. For everybody that's listening, thanks for joining us. Hopefully one day you'll be able to meet Oyuki maybe at an event, or if you become a client,
Yeah.
you'll be able to talk to her because she jumps on like our bi-weekly coaching calls and stuff like that. So, all right, we'll get you out of here, get you back to your normal job. Everybody else
Thank
have a
you.
wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe to the podcast and also share it with friends, family, and basically anyone you know who will find the same value in this episode as you do. So, to get the latest from me, then let's connect on social media on the Facebooks at facebook.com/dude agency or Instagram at dudeagency.io. Then you can also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and even TikTok. Yes, I'm that cool. We are on TikTok. Finally, go to our website at dudeagency.io, where you can see all of our other episodes of Operation Agency Freedom. Register for live trainings on how to run a highly profitable agency, and you can see exactly how we help marketing agencies fix their operations and scale to 8 figures and beyond. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time.